I got a Portland fucking Rose City anti-fascist on Alex Jones's show, and they didn't argue, and all they talked about was the deep state and the Great Reset and shit like that. And it was like, oh, look, you two are if you listen to the media, you two are supposed to fucking hate each other. But here you go, Portland anti-fascist and Alex Jones, and they agree on more shit than they fucking disagree on. It's like, holy what?
Yeah, I think it's important to keep doing this though.
Both, what both are used for.
Well, yeah.
Both Proud Boys and Antifa, they're used in order to create mass confusion, mass division,
and further state power. The end goal always.
Every single time, and more often than not, both of their stated purpose for whatever it is they're out there for that day is to support an establishment talking point. And it's like, well, what the fuck? Are you even are people looking at that going, that's a real communist? That's a real fascist? Fuck no, dude. That's a tool of empire.
As long as we're going down that route, Antifa, for the love of all things holy, please stop hyping up Rojava. That's why I can't fuck with Western anarchists, guys. Y'all fell for an anarchist commune in occupied fucking Syria. Do you think that Rojava would exist if it weren't for the CIA, if it weren't for the U.S. military?
It's in the U.S. green zone in occupied fucking Syria.
And here's the thing, too, is like I said, three of the biggest people. Yeah, three of the biggest people in the Boogaloo movement are volunteer fighters that went and fought for YPG. They will tell you this. They will tell you this. They were at Rojava. They were fighting ISIS with the YPG. They will say this to you. They're like, yeah, dude, the fucking CIA is all over that shit. The West is all over that shit. There's a bunch of creepy shit going on. It's not a mystery to anyone who fucking knows. But
or you can just listen to Scott Horton for 5 minutes and figure this all out.
Exactly.
We have created and armed and then fought against and then fought with and then allied and then armed every single terrorist group in the Middle East. It's
fucking just real quick. I would like to thank everyone who's been hanging out with us on Aftermath FM and iHeartRadio. We will see you Sunday.
Oh, it's already gone.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, one of my good friends, Cato, he fought over there, and he's like, dude, Americans do not understand what the fuck is happening over there, because there was literally a week, and he showed me videos and stuff where he was fired on by the Syrian military, the Free Syrian Army, the Russians, the U.S. forces. Then the U.S. forces gave them guns, and then the U.S. forces shot at them again. And it's you talk to the volunteer fighters, obviously some of them drank the fucking Kool-Aid and think it's some glorious revolution or whatever, but a lot of them are like, no, dude, I went over there and I cannot even explain to you what the fuck is happening over there, because that's American foreign policy. Like you said, manufactured confusion, just make it the biggest clusterfuck ever. Oh, we bombed ISIS, but we also dropped a supply crate full of Humvees and fucking shit to them on the other side of the country.
No offense, people in the chat and in the conversation, but American anarchists are pretty shit at realizing stuff like that, at realizing that when it comes to a lot of, anarchist projects that just so happen to be in occupied sovereign nations that we're trying to go to war with, there's a huge pitfall when it comes to anarchists and Western leftists in general, when it comes to recognizing something like imperialism. We're talking about kind of solutions and stuff. I think first and foremost, there has to be a very thorough dismantling of the empire, because these self-sufficient communities can't happen as long as the empire exists.
So much of Western leftism is rooted in academia. And it's not rooted in a genuine, street-based, bottom-up, reality-driven sort of I don't know, anti-establishment or even socialist perspective. It's all campus Marxism, which makes it not just the most irritating shit on the fucking planet, but also the most worthless. Essentially, definitely not worth the paper it's printed on, and not worth the fucking slave labor in the phone that you're reading it off of when you're telling me to just read theory and everything I have a question about will be answered.
Well,
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this is why they, I mean, if you're supposedly fighting the system and yet all of your messaging, I can read from JP Morgan Chase. Sorry, brother, you ain't a rebel. You ain't a rebel.
Right.
You are
That's
an
the point.
bro.
Yeah, I can read from JP Morgan Chase.
I get that all the time. On I got into an argument with a guy that literally his name was Read Anarcho-Communist Theory. Okay, and this dude was simping for the vaccine passports, and I'm like, let me go back to the room where it was Bakunin and fucking Karl Marx and fucking like Stirner and everything, and let me find the passage in their book where it says simp for mega capitalist corporation that's supported by the government. Where is that in communist fucking literature? Like, who are you people?
Let me find the anarchist like the famous anarchist essay that says, oh yeah, this international workers commune in the middle of occupied Syria sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, because I honestly, I know a lot of people from all these communes. There's another one that doesn't get talked about, which is in Ukraine, and there's a whole anarchist like army, for lack of a better term, that's fighting the Russians in Ukraine. And again, like, they never want cameras on these people, because every time Vice goes over there, they're like, yeah, the Germans are giving us a bunch of weapons and the Americans are giving us a bunch of weapons. It's crazy. And then they turn the camera really, and these are anarchists. And obviously, like, there's a degree of argument on who's using who, but they're definitely convenient to each other. You can never deny they're convenient to each other, and that you're only really allowed to be an anarchist if you're helping somebody, it seems. That kind of thing. And
that's a great way to put it.
And I admit that as an anarchist, as like a super anarchist, that like if I went and started a commune or did a Chaz Chop or whatever, and it wasn't immediately fucking Waco'd, it's because they want it to be there. Like, because every single one of us here, we've all been deplatformed. I have dead friends. A lot of us know people that got locked up for what they say. So you're not a revolutionary or fighting the power unless you're getting knocked on the door by the FBI or taken off the internet. Like, those are the people that are doing shit. If you're on the Young Turks talking about revolution, you're allowed to be on the Young Turks talking about revolution. Like, period. Yeah. Whatever you're saying, they're okay with you saying it.
Like, if you don't know, like, if you don't practice OPSEC and you're able to get away with what you're doing, you might be serving something else.
And that's what happened to the Proud Boys. I got into arguments with those motherfuckers. I told them, I did a whole post about this, when they were running around begging the FBI and Operation Legend and all that shit to run around and go after BLM protesters and Antifa over the Georgia. I said, don't do this, guys. You don't understand, because you're next. Don't do this, motherfucker. And they didn't listen.
Yeah.
And they empowered the FBI to go after BLM and shit. And I warned them.
Frustrating.
And then, a week later, fucking the FBI's running around arresting all those motherfuckers.
Mm-hmm. So wait a second. Yeah.
And then I told the left, I'm like, don't support the FBI going after the Trump people, because you're next. And then they start going after the left again. And then now it's come full circle to where you have even some libertarians supporting Ron DeSantis with his fucking anti-riot bill. And I'm like, dude, guys, when are you going to learn?
Right.
When are you going to learn?
And let me speak to that too, Magnus, because I've actually been to protests on the ground in Florida. There is a very real tangible effect that has been taking place in protests in Florida because of that protest bill. Like, cops are 10 times more strict about keeping people like to the sidewalks and on the road. Like, they literally, like, for one of our protests, they literally confined us to only be within one plaza and within like 100 meters of one road that ran outside the plaza. Whereas, you know, if it weren't for the protest bill, we could have marched around more. And like, I was at a protest in Wynwood where to force people to stay on one side of the road, I think they even started using like the LRADs at one point, or they were doing something, because it blew out one of my whole ass fucking ears. And I was like, okay, so that's where this bill is going.
Yeah, that's the Ron DeSantis fucking riot bill. And it's amazing that that's not wall-to-wall coverage of just how fascist that is, of the fact that if one person throws a fucking frozen water bottle at a cop, everyone at that protest can get a felony. Everyone. Yeah. Even if you're just walking through and you don't even know what's going on, you get a felony. So we don't even have to go into agent provocateurs or the cops pretending to be protesters. Let's just say that I'm fucking Jeff or one of these, Bella Cross or one of these people that hates the fucking... Yeah. Let's just say I'm one of them, and you guys are having a super successful Julian Assange protest in Florida, and I really don't like that because I'm a grifter. All I got to do is put on a black mask, sneak into your crowd, throw a fucking water bottle at the cops, and you're all going to jail. It's like, that's America right now. Like,
Yeah.
holy fuck.
And they're going to jail for a long time. And this
Yep.
is why the state always capitalizes on chaos, is because it allows for the normies to call for these really totalitarian acts to try and bring order back to the system. And that's why I'm very cautious about getting involved with these larger protests, because I realize that this is potentially my fate, and it's tragic because I want to be on the front lines with these people, especially if they are peaceful and they're heading in the right direction. Anyways, I've been on way longer than I intended to, so I really appreciate you guys having me on. Check me out, Liberty Lockdown Podcast, at Liberty Lock Pod on Twitter. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for coming
Thank
on.
you very much. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, that's an
I gotta head
internal-
out too, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I'll be back
we
in a few
can go
hours.
ahead and start winding down now. I do have a bunch of super rays to run through real quick, but if anybody's got to get out immediately, please go ahead and do that.
I will see you in a few hours.
We'll,
Bye, guys.
we'll wrap the show, and then we'll be back at 3 on the West Coast, 6 on the East Coast. We got a huge dive into the Jobs Reset Summit that the World Economic Forum held this past week. Stevie from Redneckonomics will be on with us. That's like the best handle.
I love it. Like it's so simple but so clever, but like just Redneckonomics. Just
Good stuff.
wow.
Good.
We lost 2 people. What happened? I went to the bathroom. Everyone disappeared.
Allie had to bounce, and Clint was over time. We're gonna go ahead and like start winding down anyway.
Steve, let me just say one thing, because I did want to bring it up, because you guys just talked about kind of group enforcement and criminalization. Since we got the Great Reset thing, I think we should talk about, at least really quickly, OSHA in California now mandating that everybody who works for an employer have to provide proof of vaccination, or everybody wears the mask. In other words, if 1 out of your 25 employees decides, hey, fuck you, I'm not getting vaccinated, group punishment, everybody wears the mask until they do. You know, that is insanity. And that is another example of this group coercion that we're seeing to institute these things. And that's why, you know, I got a lot of pushback for the idea that more people wouldn't be awake if Biden wasn't in, or if Trump was in, these things wouldn't be happening. I believe they would be happening in these localized areas. California, New York, East Coast, they've embraced this. Michigan has embraced this in the Midwest.
Excluding Miami.
Well, Florida, you look at Florida again, DeSantis let the UFC.
It's a clusterfuck, honestly.
Well, I mean, the reason I didn't go to the UFC when they first went to Florida is they had a COVID pass-like system, or you had to go to a tent and take a medical questionnaire and have your temperature taken. I was not down with that. Now, when they went to Texas, it wasn't reported on, but they did none of that. You were at your word. You basically signed a document saying if you got sick at this place, not their problem. As much as I don't like that either, I'm much more okay with that with medical questionnaire, identification, COVID pass, digital outset, medical tent, okay? So there's an illusion right now that Ron DeSantis, and look, when DeSantis says something right, I'm fine with it. You know, with him saying he's going to sue big tech, great. We'll see where that goes. But in the same breath, he propagates a military-industrial complex narrative of the Middle East. He's a war hero, right? On top of that, big problems. I've taken Gabbard to task on many of her things. UBI, saying torture is okay. I don't play team baseball.
Wanting to disarm the working class.
Yes, her gun control shit. And again, I call Ron DeSantis the right-wing AOC, because he is. He's literally the right-wing fucking AOC. A lot of the same shit I saw when she was coming into prominence of how people would defend her and how they would deflect from her is going on with Ron DeSantis now. Of like, oh, you're just criticizing his riot bill because you're a secret lockdown person, blah, blah, blah. It's like... No,
it's like, no,
fuck you. And you're right, Jason, of like the government is aware of social pressure and social coercion. And this isn't even new. You can go all the way back to World War I when the fucking English government hired a bunch of women to go around and put white roses on single men who didn't sign up to join the military and call them cowards. And they hired women to go emasculate men to try to get them to go kill themselves in World War I. This isn't even new. They're well aware of this fucking shit.
Absolutely. And, you know, speaking to these bills that would criminalize groups, one of the big things that I was talking about, and I would go on, left-wing shows and be adamant about this, is that, okay, he ripped down a statue. Okay, he lit it on fire. All right, that's damage of property. We're not going to make him into a terrorist. I don't need some kind of bill to extra criminalize the already criminal act that this person has done. All right? That's a big, big problem. You want to charge him with what's on the books, it's already a crime. I was no big fan of, what was the fucking one that they tore down, the dude that helped found the KKK?
Oh, Nathaniel Bedford Forrest?
No, that's a different one. It was fucking, shit, it's killing me. Pike.
I thought
Albert
you were going to
Pike.
say the Christopher Columbus statue because they vandalized the Columbus statue down here in Miami, and
Well,
I'm sorry, but
you know what? I did videos on that because, look, like I've said, if you don't want to immortalize some of these people, if you want to out some of their crimes, I totally get that. But you look, for instance, across the ocean, and in Europe, when people figured out that maybe Cecil Rhodes wasn't the best dude, guy behind the Rhodes Trust, and talk about a lot of colonization on behalf of the white man, instead of them just pulling these things down off of university, they got people together. They petitioned the school. They said, look, he is guilty of all these things. We don't need the reminder. We're going to take him down. And I think they deserve a place in a museum so people can understand how fucking history works and how influential this person was. I think it's so much more effective that way.
I definitely have the angle of it of putting the statue in a museum to also tell people that, hey, we all thought it was okay to make this statue one time. And it was in a public fucking place. Look at this statue. Look at the statue of Cecil fucking Rhodes. This used to be in a park, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean, like, I shed no tears for those statues, but at the same time, like, I think people need to be confronted with that history.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I also think, like, I haven't talked about this yet, but it's a theory I've had for a long time, of even the statue stuff was kind of an op, because, and I don't know about other places, but in Michigan in particular, that there was a lot of leaked documents that the police explicitly refused to defend these statues because they knew left-wing protesters were going to go there. But then behind the scenes, they were hitting up their right-wing militia buddies to go do it for them because they wanted videos of Trump supporters with guns fucking getting into fights with left-wing protesters. And they did the same thing in Detroit. The protest I had a gun pulled on me at was a tribunal against DPD, and I was doing security for them. There was only 2 DPD officers at that entire protest. Thousands of people, only 2 cops. There's more cops down there on a fucking Thursday afternoon than that. And then all the bikers showed up, and then the Proud Boys showed up. And I talked to some of those people after the fact, and they're like, yeah, DPD asked us to come down there and do security. And it's like, whoa. And even in Kenosha, everybody forgets about Kenosha, that video after the fact of the Kenosha guard dude talking to the BLM protester being like, yeah, the cops said they were going to push you guys down to us and we would deal with you. And it's like, whoa, like there's some dirty shit going on with this whole thing. They're creating these flashpoints and then trying to push people together to fucking fight.
Well, Magnus, they have to legitimize domestic terror, right? So, like, again, if you can make somebody who's just going to rip down a statue and light it on fire in their, like, teens or 20s into a domestic terrorist, all the better. It doesn't matter what color they are. And, you know, we're talking about white supremacy now, but the stage has already been set for quote-unquote black supremacy in the sense that if you follow Louis Farrakhan, and you're a bow tie Muslim, as I like to call him, you could be on a terror watch list as well because you are fucking 100%. Anti-Semitic out of the gates, right? And
he's a Scientologist.
Black activist,
huh? Too.
Whoa.
Oh, Josh,
Crazy
I'm sorry.
echo.
He was saying. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, dude, like Farrakhan's crazy too. Like they do all that weird Scientology shit.
Well, let me say this, man. I want to say this about Farrakhan. Same deal. You know, you don't have to believe in fucking archetypes. All right. Again, these people are, you know, this is a religion. They're into their book. I get it. I've met a lot of these people. They're a lot like you and me. I remember when I was touring with Loose Change, and in Boston in particular, you know, I went to one of these places and we showed the film. We did a Q&A there as well. And I think a lot of these people come from that anti-establishment school where they understand the civil rights movement didn't just end with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X especially, and that the corruption is there. And, you know, that was an outlet for them to get together, organize, and empower themselves in their communities. I get it. And a lot of them to this day are very anti-government. And I think it's very dangerous that all of a sudden you can paint that entire sect as quote-unquote anti-Semitic, especially when you get down to it, when organized religions in and of themselves are contrarian in, you know, some respects and have been utilized throughout history to cause world war, right? So, you know, it's that open excuse. But I just like to point out, you know, white supremacy is hot now. But the loopholes have been set. Hate crime, right? Like, I watched a video of, you know, a 12-year-old kid getting punched by a black man in Missouri last year. Now, that guy got, I think, 8 years or something like that. Now, he deserved it. The kid is a 12-year-old kid dancing on the street, totally unprovoked, gets out of his car, walks up to him, and just socks him, runs into the car. Now, I watch a video in New York City, right, where this dude, who's obviously mentally ill, happens to be another black man, doesn't really matter to me, punches an old Asian woman in the face for no reason. Now, that guy had already been arrested, I think, fucking over a dozen times, had no business on the street, huge criminal record. You know, it speaks more to the system of your catch and release failed program of prison and not reformation or proper mental health, whatever you want to call it. It's not a hate crime, but he'll be charged with one. He's just a fucking nutty dude, picked someone off the street and fucking duffed her. And that's fucked up. But, like, you know, it shows the hypocrisy on all of it. And the more you can criminalize, the easier it is to sway your narrative, man. And their narratives now, even when there is huge pushback and they don't make sense, it doesn't matter. They just censor it. They censor it quicker and fucking quicker and quicker. And I wonder to myself, in fact, I know that it would not be possible in today's day and age to have the same kind of impact with a loose change style production because of the censorship, right? For instance, a lot of this lab leak stuff that is now mainline, I'd say 80 to 90% of it was covered in the 25-minute intro Plandemic film. Not even like the follow-up that was 90 minutes. You know, all that stuff was publicly available then, and it got immediately censored. And you notice the narrative that they produced, which maybe I agree with, maybe I don't, you know, there are certain parts and aspects, but it went beyond just Chinese lab leak. And they still don't want to make that association. They censored the fuck out of that.
No, they can't talk about Fort Detrick. They can't talk about how the studying gain of function in Wuhan was outsourced by the U.S.
And you know what? Fauci's talking about that part to try to cover his ass. You know, he's actually openly, like, when he got his talking points a little better after the second Rand Paul confrontation, I forget whether it was, was it Stephanopoulos? I played it on my show, but he did, you know, a little round with the media, and he starts talking about, he had a big smile on his face now, and he's like, well, to say China and the Wuhan lab, it goes over here and there, and we've got subcontracts there. And I'm like, great, you're just validating the same point I was making last March, that fucking these bioweapons programs are completely unaccountable, completely underground in the United States, in fucking places like China, in Israel, in South America. You know, I mean, they exist all over the place. Again, the idea this is a nation-state operation when you had global war games preceding it in almost the exact scenario, and then those same players at the table get to cut up the fucking world. Literally get to cut up the world. That should alarm people. That should be an open discussion by somebody who's not a fucking college dropout. You know, like where are the intellectuals? All you fucking fake ass pseudo intellectuals want to step up to the plate on either side. Let's have the conversation, because I don't know that you have answers.
Now, Jason.
What?
Yeah, they can't deny you
now.
now.
I'm wearing a suit now.
I'm sorry.
I've got nice clothes on is because there's a void of well-dressed people with these ideas.
I could put on a nice suit too. I can wear eye
reason.
makeup. I choose not to. Like, here's the deal. I'm a real person, and there are plenty more of us, and we're just as fucking smart as you. All right, if not smarter. And here's the thing. I get it. You're pretty. You're on TV. You're promoted. You get a good salary. They give you a nice script. You got a nice wife. A lot of you are into the prostitutes on any angle. You know what I'm talking about, guys. You got a nice little setup. Good for you. What about your fucking kids? Are you that sociopathic? Are you that sociopathic that you don't care about this next generation? That you haven't seen enough people?
Well, that's the fucking thing about those people. Is I don't agree where the right wing takes this, but they do accurately identify a lot of these people don't got kids. You know, a lot of these people don't give a fuck. They're like they're ready to ride out to it, and it's ridiculous, like you said, of the things we now even have to do to get platform to talk to shit. Like people criticize like obviously me and my guys a lot, but like would anyone have cared about the Whitmer fucking like old folks home shit that was going on if there wasn't a bunch of dudes in Hawaiian shirts with fucking rifles standing out front? No one would have talked about it. Nobody would have fucking cared. But we're so absurd and stupid looking that they had to address it. And then you got, again, people like fucking Vermin Supreme, like all the weird, ridiculous shit we have to do to even get people to pay attention to any of this shit is ridiculous. Like, I don't understand.
Well, my point is, look, again, I don't think like it's shape-shifting lizard people at the top. I'm not a fucking religious guy. I'm agnostic at best. There's one thing, after doing all this shit and looking at it for 20 plus years, and you know this, Steve, I believe in good and evil. I get nature versus nurture. There's a lot of arguments on that. I'm into micro evolution for sure. I think macro's got a lot of problems, but I know good and evil exists. You can see somebody, good upbringing, background, same family. Some people are just fucking shitbags. Some people get off on sociopathy. And even if that is somewhere along the line, the nurture, right? You still got to fight that evil. And if you're actively ignoring things that you know are wrong and detrimental and going along to get along, Martin Luther King fucking Jr. said it best. It just takes good men doing nothing for evil to succeed. And it's not just men, it's women, it's everybody, it's people, it's human beings. And the thing is, at the end of the day, when I look at this stuff, a lot of these people, and I believe they are people, are sociopathic people that want to take evolution in their own direction and believe, if they play the right game, some of them might get to live forever. The technology may be there for them. And, when you talk about people like Kurzweil and the singularity, Google didn't put him as the head of, I believe it was Calico at the time, which was their division that was going to try to end aging and dying. And
listen, they never bring up the transhumanist stuff. Like you have to get down to the level we're all at, and like Whitney Webb and everything, like that level of deplatformed and censored for anyone to be talking about the transhumanism shit. And it's everywhere. It's in all of their fucking documents. It's in all of their presentations. It's in all of their biographies.
Schwab
They're obsessed
literally
with it.
Said the fourth industrial revolution will lead to a total fusion of your biological, digital, and physical identities.
Yes.
And it's fucking and like it's like, why are we not talking about that? Because like and it's the same thing with the eugenics shit of like if George W. Bush, which he might, I'm just picking a random name, he might have this background. If he had like multiple books about like forming the master race and like fucking like outbreeding people and everything like that, you think that would hit the news. You think people would fucking talk about that. But then again, all these motherfuckers have all this eugenicist shit, all this fucking transhumanist shit, all out in the wild, and God forbid if that ever even touches the front door of MSNBC. Let alone get on the fucking air.
Homo Deuce got was a fucking best-selling book.
Right.
Hey,
like,
Joe,
teachers...
you have a hard out in 5 minutes. Do you wanna close out? Let people know where you're gonna be in a few hours and that kind of shit.
Yes. Thanks everyone for the super raise. It's always appreciated on Slow News Day. Today in Little Haiti, link will be on mine and Nico's Twitter. Address will be on mine and Nico's Twitter. 7 p.m. in Miami. We get the kickoff of the Home Run for Julian Tour with the panel with John Shipton, Julian Assange's father, and Gabriel Shipton, Julian Assange's half-brother. And that will be the first stop in the East Coast leg of the trip. It's going to go through the Midwest, and it's also going to go through the West Coast, and then end in DC on the 30th, and then right after that,
where's it going to be in the Midwest? Where's it going to be in the Midwest?
I know Columbus, Ohio, Milwaukee. I think.
I'll tell you in just a moment, Magnus. Let me pull up the.
Because I might be able to fucking goon up to that. Let's go.
Yeah,
sure.
I love
and
that
then
shit.
Also, so ends in DC on July 1st, and then right after that, we got a quick turnaround because July 3rd is Julian Assange's 50th birthday. So we're gonna raise some serious hell for that. Look for me and Steve to be in LA with the Convo crew for that. And July 4th, co-opt the fuck out of it. Like, make it a real Independence Day, not this like pussyfooting like, oh my god, 1776, like, no, none of that. Make it like we're gonna celebrate the real freedom fighters here. So that's my out. Fuck Rojava. Great being on this panel today. Had a lovely time with you gentlemen. And big up Base God, Tech Ninja. Shout out Commander X because he's streaming with Keith McHenry right now.
Oh, they're doing that live from the
from Freedom
Santa
Camp.
Cruz Freedom Camp, the homeless camp.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Big up Commander X and Keith.
Love that, man.
Yeah, shout out ABB because I'm on that too. And yeah. Love y'all.
Later, Glory.
So the Midwest dates for the home run tour: June 14th, Columbus, Ohio. 16th, it just says Eastern Kentucky. 17th and 18th of June in Chicago, Illinois. June 19th, Milwaukee. June 20th, Madison, Wisconsin. June 21st, Minneapolis, Minnesota.
When's where's Illinois? We're in Illinois.
Chicago.
Okay.
June 17th and 18th.
Okay.
The place I'll never
And
go
I can
back
put
to.
you directly in touch with a couple of the people that are putting that together.
All right, I'm not making any guarantees because I got to go to fucking a wedding in Virginia the next weekend too, and then I've got another thing, I'm driving everywhere too, Steve. So, but I'll look into it. Listen, for the eugenics thing, I want to speak to that really quickly because you're 100% correct. Because when you look at the Veritas Facebook leaks, Zuckerberg's top dog literally names like the CRISPR tech that he's invested in. He goes, it's eugenics. And most people, he literally calls it eugenics, the dirty word no one speaks of except for Kuka Gazlak, Jason Burmas forever, but they're talking about it. And, again, Zuckerberg is basically one of those guys that is social climbed up to the predator class. And they've kind of, listen, I think Zuckerberg's actually pushed back a little more than people realize. They've tried to get him out, the Soros crew, they've tried to vote him out. They didn't like him in the very beginning. He wasn't going along with that Russian narrative. He laughed at it, really. He goes, I think people can kind of decide for themselves. Did a full 180 on that. And I'm not saying he's a good person at all, but I'm saying that he's kind of one of those guys that they manage and they only want to give so much power to. They've co-opted, obviously, with people like Thiel coming in early and then Sean Parker kind of like grooming that situation at Facebook, who CIA, I believe, recruited him when he was 16 years old, Napster dude, and then he ends up being a Bilderberg attendee right around that time that they invest in Facebook. Of course, Thiel, not just an attendee, but a steering member. Still trying to figure out whether they're having their meeting this summer. It would be around this time period, and I know that Kriston Harris reached out, and they didn't give him a no. But the website still says that the 2020 meeting is postponed. There's been literally no talk of it. And I think, it's tough to say because obviously when you look at this, I remember going in 2017 when I was in Chantilly, Virginia, and on the agenda was the post-truth world. Well, fucking A.
Yeah, dude. They don't even hide it. They put it right in front of your face. And then, so you don't even have to dig. And then, bring up, Peter Thiel in the Facebook and shit like that. There's a lot of stuff that people don't talk about with Ross Ulbricht and the whole Silk Road thing of how them trying to co-opt that and trying to get him to fucking work for them and shit like that.
Yep.
There's whole other angles of bullshit if you want to get that deep. But you don't even have to get that deep. You could just listen to the fucking people. Just listen to them talk.
Yeah.
That's why, back in the early InfoWars days, 2014 or whatever, when I was still more of an Alex Jones fan and stuff like that, I would just tell people, turn on C-SPAN and just listen to these motherfuckers. Yeah, it's boring, but just listen to these they'll tell you everything. They don't hide it. They don't need to hide it because nobody cares.
Yeah.
And this goes back to what Kiriakou said when I asked him, why is it always the same playbook with the CIA? And he goes, well, they're not as smart as people think they are. And there's no consequences.
That's right.
They're not incentivized to be more creative because they don't have to be. They have seen that these things work. They have seen that if you beat the lie over the people's heads enough, they'll believe it and repeat it. And it's Leni Riefenstahl, the Hitler's propagandist, when John Pilger interviewed her in the 70s. She talked about why the propaganda films worked. And it wasn't because of any sort of direction or mentoring or narrative, delivery from up above, but what she called the submissive void. And the ability to just put the message out there and have people who are already so beaten down by everything else in life that they just accept that your propaganda is how things work because thinking about shit to the point to where you're consciously aware of how bad things actually are makes you want to do something about it. And once you start to do something about it, you start to lose shit. You start to lose friends. You might start to lose some family members. You might lose your job. You might lose your ability to communicate to people in the methods by which you're used to doing it, especially if you make a living off of it, because of what you're saying. And that's why it's so important that you do support your independent media.
And if you could take it far enough, then you might end up in jail or might end up getting a knock on your door. You know, like it's
you might get your head split open. You know, I mean,
old Seth.
Real talk. But I mean, look, if you don't, nobody else will. Not for you, at any rate. No, nobody's coming to your rescue. You need to be your own hero. You need to be the change that you seek in the world. You do. It sounds trite as fuck, but I mean, it's there are no like heroes. Nobody's swooping in to rescue anybody. It's going to take a dedication to working with people that you may not necessarily agree with all the time on everything.
That's life.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's just it. Like the pushback to the unity thing is so anti-human to me, and it's so
like,
fucking
holy fuck.
It's so fucking anti-human to me because I don't understand, because like I don't think these people live in the real world or they're fucking government agents, either one. But it's like dude, I remember growing up and we had a gas station that we knew was run by some crazy dude who thought that fucking like the government were all aliens and everything like that, and nobody cared. And they just went to the gas station, they bought their fucking cigarettes and their beer, and they went home. Nowadays, that dude gets canceled on Twitter. It's like it's so anti-human to me, and I don't get it. Of like, the best example of it was the Tea Party and Occupy meetups that happened that nobody talks about anymore. It has been buried and burned from the fucking internet. Of having like open like college Marxists hanging out with Ron Paul fucking Republicans, and them being like, yeah, awesome. Totally. Yeah, let's organize. Let's do this shit. And that's so normal for people. Like, if the house is on fire, you got a bucket of water. Help me throw the fucking water on the house, bro. Like, I don't care what your kooky opinions on anything are. Like, let's just do this shit. But that's not how it works anymore. And I know, Steve, you complain about gatekeepers all the time. And I complain about fucking gatekeepers all the time, and how everything's a big social club. And everything's all about your connections and who you're in a picture with. And, oh, Jason Berman was around this one guy, and this one guy shared a Q meme one time. So Jason Berman's, it's like fucking, I don't get it. It's alien to me. And I'm glad people are slowly starting to wake up to it, but also people are rejecting it like even harder than before. But that's just the world people like us live in, is the extremes get worse. People lick the boot harder and reject it in increasing numbers, you know?
I mean, that's a fascinating point. It is, and it's one of the reasons that I wanted to get Clinton Reed on the show, is because I know that all of you guys are active politically, you know, and I am not. I focus on I don't think we get to politics until we get the agency. I don't think we get to politics and policy until there's a decoupling of national security state control over our electoral system, our media, or our education system, or now our health. But I mean, that's why shit like this needs to happen. That's why we have to get on discussions like this more and more often. I really want to do this in person, like in front of an audience, before too long too.
That's like my big hope with the September 11th anti-war march that we're planning, that we have like Scott Horton and like Reed and everybody and all, like almost all the LPs on board. And we're reaching out to like Fred Hampton leftist people and like all that, and Green Party people and the berets and everything. Cause like, I think people really dramatically underestimate how important seeing unity is. And we all inherently know this. Some of the most popular news stories in the country are Crips and Bloods put down their guns to have a family cookout. And everybody loves that. And that motivates people. And you look at that and you're like, you know what? Maybe that guy I was yelling at yesterday, maybe I was an asshole to him. Maybe I should be a better person. So to see leftists, Marxists, libertarians, constitutional conservatives, all these people in the same place, not fighting for like one thing. Like that's so huge in people's brains that they don't realize like how that like starts shit. That gets people going. That makes people want to do things. And I also think that's why they're so terrified of it and they don't want to talk about it.
That's fair. That's fair. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap. We've been going for quite a while. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out for a couple of hours and getting this in. Jason, please tell people where they can find you, how they can support you, and as always, my brother, much love.
Thank you, brother. So I should maybe kind of sort of almost be back on YouTube on Monday. I think I'm going to save my tongue lashing via DM to Team YouTube for a Monday video. I'll have a rough draft written up, but we'll see. I think that'll be a fun video to do if we get back on the platform. Obviously, Rockfin, man. Rockfin.com/Jason Bermas. If you haven't noticed, I pretty much give everything away from free. Upfront, everything that's like quote-unquote premium are throwbacks from 12, 13 years ago when I'm talking about a lot of the same subject matter. This isn't new. Fake news isn't new. It's not right versus left. We are up against a very, very real predator class that is organized against us. And when I say us, I mean everybody from got $10 into their pocket to those that got 10 million. They don't like independent wealth generationally. I promise you that. You know, you get to start getting in sociopathy and you can be a minion and do some kickbacks. Maybe they'll let you in their club. Maybe one day you can be Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. I don't fucking know. If that's you, I'm not your guy. But if that's not you, please check my stuff out. All the documentary films are free from, what do we got? Let's see if we can bring up the graphic for the kids. Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. And, you know, if you don't understand 9/11, I don't know how you're going to understand what's going on here. So I would encourage you to start with the 2 9/11 films. And if you want to know what I think this is all about, please check out Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, and Shade the Motion Picture. They're in the documentaries playlist section over at YouTube. You can find them just about anywhere else, and they're free. And I just want to thank everybody on the platform. Magnus, it was very nice to finally talk to you in person. I got to get you on my program as well. And
yeah,
Steve,
I want to talk to you about the Gray State guy, that film.
You know, I got
one of my
interviewed for that
favorite
film.
conspiracies of all time is what happened to the Gray State guy.
So
Everyone forgot about that.
I talked to them in. They interviewed me for that film.
I know you do. That's why I want to talk to you about it.
Yeah, you know what? That's a tough one, man, because you don't know a lot of these people personally. I'll say this. And then sometimes you do meet these people personally behind the scenes, and just like you guys were talking about the Green Party and pettiness and egos and rigs, you know, you get to see behind the curtain a little bit, and that some people have lost it. I've worked with people that I believe have lost it, you know, again, because I want to hear all different voices, and, you know, there may be breaking points for people. Let's be honest. We're all human beings. You know, none of us are perfect, and we all have our demons to deal with. But, you know, especially what happened in that situation, wow. Very dark. And Lord knows, but you know, we're not in Kansas, and we'll talk about the Wizard of Oz, man. We could talk forever, as we did today, and that'll be an interesting conversation. I look forward to it.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah. Magnus.
Okay, so yeah, the only 2 places on the internet I'm really allowed to exist anymore is YouTube and Twitter. They're both just Magnus Panvidya. I run a podcast called Unity or Death, which is essentially what we did on this show. But that's what I do every week is I just grab, like, let's get a liberal Second Amendment guy and a BLM protester and a right-wing guy, throw them on. Let's get a bunch of people who criticize Israel. Let's get them on. So I kind of just grab people from all across the political spectrum and try to force them to do nothing but agree with each other for 2 hours. So that's kind of what I do on there. It's lots of fun. And then I'm uploading that to Odyssey, PeerTube. It's on Spotify and Castbox. I'm trying to get on Rockfin. I've been trying for like 6 months now.
Oh, I'll get you on, bro. I'll get you on. I'll do you a DM to Martin and Jaime, and we'll definitely get you on. You got the audience, you got the presence. I'm sure they'd love you. They're just really backed up. They just put out the app. There's a lot going on there, and I'm
not worried about it.
Well, I'm worried about it, man. We want more voices like that because, listen, again, I'm not here for fucking people to agree with me all the time. I'm not here because I'm some kind of omnipotent being. People have to realize that we make mistakes. We are human, and if we start losing our humanity, and believe me, a lot of this over the last year plus covering in your face, stopping interactions, telling you to be 6 feet away, telling you to fear that person that's not wearing that and ostracize them. That is a very big part of quote unquote transhumanism to me.
100%.
And yeah, definitely. Like, you know, I'll close on my plug with I'll steal a quote from Dave Smith. Is the whole idea behind unity is accepting the fact that we're dealing with a group of people that will drone strike your kids and burn your children alive and then wake up bright-eyed, bushy-tailed the next morning. That is what we're fighting against. And they are in perfect unity. They agree on everything. They love each other. They have no problem being together. So if we can't get even close to that, we're fucked. So unity or death. That's why I say it. Unity or fucking death. Like,
well, real quick, Hunter G, Janine Campbell, no offense, Shadow Band Refugee, Convo Couch, WM, Rachel, Yvonne McDevitt, and Gain of Fauci. Love that name. Love that name.
That's a fucking
Thank you
slap.
very, very much for the super. As you guys rock. I am going to be on Anonymous Bites Back with Mark Lubers and Deepa Driver in about 20 minutes. Which I just found out during the show, but I love Deepa, and I'm like, I can't say no to that woman. It's just, she's like the kindest, sweetest, hardest working, most wonderful human being on the planet. So if she's like, will you do this thing? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it.
I'll do it, yeah.
You know, just how it works. 3 o'clock, we'll be back with Stevie from Redneckonomics. We're going to be doing the Great Reset, Jobs Reset Summit. And a deep dive into that. We'll be checking in with Glory, who will be at the kickoff of the Home Run for Julian tour. Guys, I am trying to cover the entire West Coast leg of that and the final stop in DC. Turn it into a documentary. I do believe that it will be that it'll have value in furthering awareness about what's happening both to Julian Assange and the war on journalism writ large. I've got put a link out for it in the chat already. I'll do that one more time. And if you can, guys, please donate to that. If you can't, I totally get it. I could not donate to a GoFundMe right now. So I understand, but if you could help share the link, I would really appreciate it. It does help. I am getting closer to my goal, which will cover plane tickets, and that's about it. But fortunately, I get a crash at most of the places I'm going. Not really worried about food. I need to get some memory cards. And that's about it. So really appreciate everyone who has donated so far. You guys fucking rock. We'll see you all very, very soon. Big thanks as always to my better than your co-hosts, Ali Alexander and Sleepy Josh, Glory Joe, Sleepy Josh on the ones and twos. Everyone who was on the panel today, that was fucking killer.